Hello. Hello and welcome to this series of Understand Your ICF Credentials. Today we will be talking about the core competency, establishes and maintains agreement. This is the third core competency of ICF, and I truly hope you've been enjoying all the other core competencies and the other information that we have been sharing under the banner Understand Your ICF Credential. Do let us know how it is helping you and what else you would want to know about it. My name is Prosperity. I am the Innermost Shift head coach and I'm a ICF PCC certified coach. And I wonder what really do you want to know about establishes and maintains the agreement? If you have a specific question, do put it in the comment box and I will make sure I answer it during the course of this I'm sorry, I'm lost of word. I will address it during the course of this session that we are going into together with, right? So, what does it mean to establish and maintain agreement? The first two core competencies of ICF, which is really the two foundation competencies as devised by ICF. Uh, the first one is foundational competencies, which is about demonstrating ethical practices and embodies a coaching mindset. And this is in the subdivision establishes and maintains agreements is in the subdivision of co-creating relationship. So the very term itself, co-creating relationship, is actually about that the agreement is a two-way process. It's not just what the client says, it's not just what the coach says, it's not about the client wants this kind of an agenda and the coach agrees to it. The coach has to have competency in that agenda that the client wants to be able to take ahead and take the client through that agenda as well, that topic as well, right? So it's a co-creating relationship, establishes and maintains agreement. Hi, Nayan Kumar. Let me know if you have any question and I'll answer to that as well. So yeah, coming back to establishes and maintains agreement. Uh, this agreement is about partnering with the client and relevant stakeholders. It's not just the client, it's all the involved stakeholders as well. It could be the sponsor, it could be the parent, it could be the colleague, it could be anyone that is involved, the direct stakeholders who are involved in the coaching session. And obviously they have to be informed. They are the ones who know that this client is undertaking a coaching session. To create clear agreements, partners with the client and relevant stakeholders to create clear agreements about the coaching relationship, process, plans, and goals. And it includes also the logistics and the finances, everything, right? So, all the relevant stakeholders have to have whatever information is relevant to them. There are, of course, times when the coaching relationship is only between the coach and the client, and no one else is involved in it. And there are times when the coaching relationship has a tri-party agreement as well, which means there is a sponsor, it could be a company, it could be a parent, it could be a spouse who is actually hired a coach for the client in this manner, right? And in this case, the agreement has to state very, very clearly what is going to be shared between the three, which means what is going to be shared between the coach and the client, what is going to be shared between the sponsor and the client, or any other stakeholder and the client. And it has to be really very, very clearly stated in the agreement. Right? The coaching agreement, while it says it's a co creating relationship, it also lays the foundation of the rest of the session. If your agreement is not proper, if you don't have a very concrete understanding of what you're working forward in the session can very loosely go haywire. And this is one thing that I have noticed in almost 100 of coaching sessions, or probably more than 100 coaching sessions that I've evaluated. The very fact that the the client says something and the coach takes is just, kind of just takes it as a the agreement that this is what the client means, and just moves ahead with the topic. It can really derail the entire coaching session, because the client might have something else in mind and the client might not really be following through with whatever the client has, just colloquially mentioned some things in the beginning. Because in the client's mind also, there needs to be clarity of what the client might wants to work in, right? And only then will the client be able to really define that this is what I want to work in. The client has to be able to articulate what the client wants to work. And it's very interesting how the other competencies also comes into play just while establishing and maintaining the core agreement, right? the the coach has to listen actively. The coach has to raise the client's awareness and ask by asking powerful questions to be able to help the client arrive at something which is very, very important to the client, and the client will work on it as well. So it's not just when you're displaying only one competency, you're displaying only one competency. All the competencies kind of go hand in hand. It's like it's like a play, all the actors come together and then one play is there. So all the competencies kind of come together, and then that one amazing coaching session is there. And of course, each in that play, every actor's role is very, very important. Everyone plays a very, very important role, and when each one plays their role to the up to the maximum, that's when the play is absolutely beautiful. So let's talk about the actor called establish and maintains agreement. What does this mean? Once again, that the coach explains to the client what is and is not the coaching session, what is and is not covered in the coaching session as well. So very, very clearly tells the client that coaching is not therapy, coaching is not mentoring, coaching is not advising. So what the coach will be doing in the coaching session and what the coach will not be doing in the coaching session. If you agree, if you remember, this is also one of the things which is about demonstrating ethical practices. And it's also for the coach to help the client understand that whatever is mentioned in the coaching session is going to be kept 100% confidential as well, right? So in while establishing the agreement, the coach has to clearly reach an agreement about what is and is not appropriate in the relationship, what is and is not being offered, and the responsibility of the client and the relevant stakeholders. So while from the coach's side, the coach is making clear that the coach is here to raise the client's awareness. The coach is going to be working with the client to help the client to become aware of the solutions that the client already possesses within. It is also to become aware. Uh, it is also to be very clearly written in the agreement what is and is not the responsibility of the client and all the stakeholders. So the client has to, so if you have agreed with the client that the client is going to work on the goals and the client is going to be sharing the progress on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, whatever is your agreement, you have to have that agreement before the start of the session, right? And it doesn't matter whether it is one session or it is an ongoing session. So even if you have the path defined with the client that says, I will be coaching you for the next 12 months to be able to help you develop relationship with all your colleagues, right? And this is a longer journey, and you have kind of defined what all will be covered in it. Even then, it has to be made very clear what is the responsibility of the client. It's the client's responsibility to show up on time or to inform in advance if the client is not able to come, and to definitely work on the goals, the action plans that is there at the end of the session. So all this is the responsibility of the client and any other as is established between the coach and the client. It has to be made clear between the two and often written in a long term agreement as well. The agreement between a coach and a client is not just the one long written agreement that is there. It is also in the moment and before every coaching session starts, it has to be re-established that this is what we're going to work on in this coaching session for the next 45 minutes. Is that okay? More often than not, the coach will be asking the client, so what is it that you want to work on? And if the client comes up with something, big, It is also for the coach to make it concrete and note down what is it that the client really wants to work on in this session, so as to avoid any kind of ambiguity that might be there in the coaching session, or that might be there in the kind of outcome that the client has expressed to the coach, right? uh, so it's let me say, for example, if the client says that, I want to have more confidence. I lack confidence. I keep faltering. I don't know what to do. In almost all aspects of my life, I am not very confident, and I really want to be more confident as a person. Uh, and the coach takes this as the coaching agreement. So what we're going to work on in this session is to have you be more confident or to build your confidence. That's a very vague and a very, very large goal to have. And ICF does not take this as a very concrete, a well established uh, coaching session agreement or coaching session agenda. And which is true, it's not just about ICF. Confidence in the vast area of life to be taken in the coaching session in one go is extremely vague. So it's the coach's responsibility to understand what in confidence, in which area of your life do you want to work on more in, do you work on to increase your confidence? Is it when you are presenting in a meeting and the coach can just ask an open-ended question, right? But just to give you hints, it's like it could be when the client is walked into a meeting and the client lacks confidence. It could be when the client is uh, talking to the spouse about the child's future. It could be that there the client lacks confidence. Uh, it can come from various sources, and that needs to be explored later on, right? It's not to be first needs to be explored what the client really needs to work on. In fact, to be very honest, the two can go hand in hand as well, because when the client is talking, the client is talking so much at times that the client might say what is stopping the client from reaching to that goal as well, right? And that's again something that the in the agreement, in the under the banner of establishes and maintains agreement, the coach has to find out and clearly define what the client believes they need to address or resolve to achieve whatever they want to accomplish in this coaching session. So it's not just about I want to be more confident when I'm presenting in front of my boss, and it could be narrowed down further as well. I want to be more confident when I'm presenting data to my boss when he has to go for a board meeting, right? So it can be narrowed down, and the more you clearly establish the agenda, the better you can work on in the coaching session. Uh, Another part of it, like I was saying earlier, is what is does the client believe needs to be addressed or resolved for this for to move forward, for the client to move forward in this coaching session, right? uh, and that's something which I have seen a lot of coaches do not do. They simply kind of move ahead and say that, okay, you want to have more confidence while presenting your data, so when is it the last time that you had confidence, okay, or what will help you be more confident right now? And a lot of times they miss on actually exploring what is currently stopping the client in in fulfilling whatever the client wants to fulfill, in having whatever the client wants to have, right? Unless and until that is explored properly, moving ahead with the coaching session kind of, the client will keep coming back to it without really understanding that the client, without really having any kind of an understanding as to what is it that the client, what is that is stopping the client from within. And this is again something very interesting. The moment you ask what is stopping you, the client will list out 100 things that is happening outside. I do not have time, my wife does not support me, my boss does not listen to me, my all my time goes away in taking care of the family, or there is too much workload, and it's all outside. And to keep the client focused on what is happening inside, that is stopping the client, what is there that is happening inside that is actually stopping you from moving forward, what is coming in your way, what is your beliefs, what is it that is resisting you from within, that is coming in your way to move forward in this coaching session, right? And this is something that we always cover in NMO Shift coaching in the IC Probe Gap format. That's the probe gap part of it, which says that what is the gap between where you are and what you want, where you want to be. What is the current gap inside that is not helping you to move forward? So, is that's the way that there is an entire format or a module in which we um, help you understand how to cover this competency or this aspect of this competency very, very well in the coaching session as well, right? Uh, and then there is one uh, very important thing, which is how will the future be once you become, once you have this competency, right? Or what are the values or beliefs that will help you to embody these competencies? It's actually more of a marker for the PCC level. But when you work at the values and beliefs level, trust me, the entire gamut of the coaching session changes. So, this is a marker really for the PCC level. What are the values and beliefs that will help you to live by this competency? So, I can actually uh, so mm, okay. So, and yes, um, while we talk about the values and the beliefs that is there to cover the coaching competency, a lot of times I have seen that when people go through this competency, when people have a coaching agreement and the client starts to derail from the agreement, when the client starts to move to another topic, let's say the client is talking about the confidence again, and the client starts to say that, my boss is always bickering me, or he's always putting me down, and there is so much work to do. I'm not being able to do it. It's just becoming too much, and the session kind of starts to move to time management at times, right? And the coach flows with the client, and by the end of the session, I realized that the ending has nothing to do with competency. It is only to do something with the time management or the managing the time as well. It's very, very essential for the coach to keep track of what was initially discussed in the coaching session, of whether or not the coach is becoming the client, the coach is becoming aware and asking the client, how is managing time helping you with the confidence? Okay, so looping back to the competent, to the agreement or the topic of the agreement that is there, and then also to understand if at all it is derailing. So while we had started talking about confidence, at this moment we are talking about time management or managing your time better. Is this something that you would want to shift to? Is Do you want to take the session forward ahead with managing time, and you want to work on this session for the remaining 20 minutes that we have in this session? So either looping back to the original agreement or recreating the agreement then and there in that moment. Or if it's only 10 minutes left, then just telling the client, okay, we can always schedule another time to work on this coaching session, right? So that's one of the things which is very important that is there. And the similar kind of a thing has to be done for a longer term coaching plan that is there. If you have signed up with a client for a 6 months or a 12 months, and in between you realize that you are moving away from, let's say, helping this person live their goal, that is whatever the goal the person has set for themselves, and it's actually derailing and moving to other things. It's being consciously telling the client that this is what we had agreed to and this is what we are working on. Are you okay with this? So, re-establishing the agreement is also very important because it can happen when deeper issues are being dug out, the client can come up with something new. So, being fluid and dancing in the moment, even in agreement, is also important, right? So, yeah, Nayan Kumar is asking a question, how to identify relevant stakeholders. I found conflicting needs of stakeholders. Absolutely. This is one thing which happens so many times. The stakeholders are in conflicting the stakeholders do often have conflicting needs. Um, for example, if when we have an agreement with the entire organization, the head of the organization will always have a need of most of the time have a need of increased profitability, increased productivity. The HR might have a need for retaining the employees. The employee himself, who is the client in this case, might have a need of just probably venting out and not understanding. And uh, the employee in this case is actually wanting the managers to understand that he has limited time and resources. So what, how to move forward in that. So managing all of them together is is a tricky situation, and it's a challenge as well. And this again comes when you are creating the agreement, and it's an ongoing agreement. It's a work in progress. So whatever is coming out in the session is needs to be looked at during the coaching session. It's not something which is written in stone. First of all, understanding who is the sponsor who has identified you, and then focusing 100% on the client. So being as honest and truthful as you are to yourself and to the profession. uh, I believe my first duty is to my client, and if I am not being able to deliver 100% to my client, I will not be able to increase his productivity as well. If I am not focusing on helping my client resolve their issues, I will not be able to retain my client as well. So, as a professional, I truly believe that my first duty is to my client. And I think when we understand that, the other stakeholders kind of revolve around it, right? It's not about the sponsor who's the first. If the sponsor comes first, the client can never come first. Very, very clearly telling all the relevant stakeholders that whatever I discuss with my client is going to be 100% confidential. It's my duty to my client that is the first. I've come across a very, very interesting case when they said that, I am signing up for 6 sessions with my for my executive in my company, and I will have 2 of these sessions focused totally on the need of the executive. So in this case, he can take a family matter, he can take a personal matter, he can take whatever he wants to for his own sake. But I want the other 4 to be focusing on the productivity of the organization. And I think this was a beautiful solution, because it's actually, if the client is if there is a stakeholder, if there is a sponsor, they will focus on what they want in the end, which is increased productivity, increased profitability, uh, higher income for the organization. And that's how they're actually going to pay for the coaching session, or to the employees as well, right? So it's uh, the way that it is. At the same time, working with the client, to my mind, be it a leadership coaching or executive coaching, it all comes down to life coaching in a lot of manners. Because unless and until the person's beliefs and the values and the purpose, and even within the organization, if my purpose is to increase the sales of the organization, if my purpose is not aligned to what I believe with, right, I will not be able to do it with 100% conviction. So there is an overlap always between life coaching and executive coaching and leadership coaching. If my issues and my home front are not resolved, I will not be able to give 100% to my work front, right? So in this manner, it is all overlapping, and making all the relevant stakeholders understand this, that there might be a conflict, but my first priority will always lie with my client. If there is a conflict, uh, it needs to be worked out with the client first, that the client is going to tell the sponsor or the other stakeholders that there is a conflict and I will not be able to work on this. Or mentally preparing yourself that you might have to walk out of this kind of an agreement if the conflict is too high to handle, right? So it depends on the situation again, and Kumar, it's not one thing that can be answered in a this is again a very open-ended coaching question. So if there is something specific that needs to be addressed, feel free, please contact me, and we can work on it together. So one of the things which is again very interesting is coaching supervision or coaching sessions for yourself, which helps you realize if you are stuck in such a situation where you're not able to identify or be able to address the conflicting interest, how will you be able to do it in the best manner? So I would suggest, if it's a burning issue for you, take a coaching session for yourself. So thank you so much, everyone, for being over here and listening to me. And I hope the you are able to establish and maintain agreement with all your clients in an in a crystal clear and a fluid manner at the same time. In fact, it's not just in your coaching session, it's in any conversation that is there. You When you start your conversation with a topic and you know that this is what you want to, move forward with, it becomes like in any meeting when you have an agreement between the two that this is what we're going to be talking about. Your flow is much smoother. In any leadership conversation, parental conversation, when you have the topic defined, it becomes much smoother. So look at these competencies not just as in a coaching session, but across life, how it can be applied. These are something very, very beautiful competencies that is there. If you have a query about any of the coaching competencies, about how to apply for your coaching credentials, what is included in the education part of it, I'm an Inner Shift coach. We train people to become ICF and NLP certified coaches. Feel free to drop in a comment or a message, and I will get back to you. Thank you so much. And of course, the last thing, I will also be sharing a link with you to test your understanding of this competency. Take the test and let me know how it goes for you and what do you feel about it. Thank you so much for being here. Bye bye. See you.